Hi, Dinosaur Bob here. Now that we've got that lame introductory video out of the way, it's time to get to work. Today we're going to talk about the gods and goddesses that have dominion over Cartyrion. We're going to be creating the first bits of lore for the world, and we're going to talk about some of the game mechanics that need to be addressed so that this setting is actually usable in a role-playing game. There's no better place to start than the beginning, so let's get started.
Listen to my tale, if you would. Uncounted ages ago, the creator of worlds, as he had done countless times before, and would do countless times again, reached out his hand into the void. He willed to his fingertips bits of essence from each of the elements: earth, fire, air, water, light, and darkness. He shaped those bits of essence, putting each in its proper place, and when he was done, Cartyrion was born. The creator of worlds then pulled back his hands, and pondering his work, proclaimed, it'll do."
Okay, first part of the creation myth done. That was pretty easy. Every culture we've ever known about has a story that answers the question, where did we come from? But we didn't answer this question completely yet. We need more.
After he had finished his work, the creator of worlds departed to find a new void space to fill with his work. But others followed him, celestials and dark powers that wished to claim dominion over this new but as yet unpopulated world. The first to arrive claimed their portions of the world and created their children, beings who would honor and serve them, and thus increase their power. Others arrived afterward, some allying with the first to help provide order and purpose for the new creatures of Cartyrion, some wishing to steal children from the first to grow their own powers and diminish their foes. Others creating their own children meant to sow discord and strife to fuel their own passions. Those struggles continue to this very day.
Okay, now we've got a world, and we've got creatures in that world. We don't know what kind or how many, but we sort of know where they came from. We've also decided that some, but not all, of the deities of Cartyrion are responsible for actually putting the humans and the dwarves and the elves, the goblins, and everyone else into the world. So let's start fleshing out these celestial and dark powers from our creation tale. And here's where the game mechanics come into the picture. But which game mechanics? What system are we going to build for? Well, I'm a glutton for punishment, so we're going to pick two: Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition. Why? Well, the first reason is that they're both offshoots of the games that got me started back in the dark ages of TSR and Gygax and Arneson. The second reason is that one of these is by far the most popular role-playing game rule set around today, and the other is the one that my player group will be using to actually explore the world that we're building here. Fortunately, while game mechanics for these two systems are distinct, they're similar enough that we should be able to create something that plays well in both. Why do we need a pantheon of deities? Well, besides providing all sorts of background color and lore and other fodder for good role-playing, both systems have mechanical requirements for a few player classes that require the selection of a deity to serve. Both systems require clerics, for example, to choose a deity to serve. Pathfinder champions must also choose one. D&D paladins are a little more flexible, but still pick a deity or maybe a related small group of deities to serve. D&D warlocks have to pick a patron, and while these aren't typically deities, those other dark powers could present some choices. Pathfinder sorcerer bloodlines might also touch into our mythos a little bit. But if we focus on the cleric requirements, we should be okay for now. In both gaming systems, the concept of a deity's domain is important. In the old days, we called these spheres of control, or portfolios. A domain is some aspect of the world that the deity will have some control over, just as Poseidon for the Greeks had control over the seas, storms, earthquakes, and for some reason, horses. But here's where we hit our first glitch. The Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Player's Handbook identifies 7 domains. Xanathar's Guide to Everything adds a few more. And Unearthed Arcana adds even more. And before anybody says anything, I know that 2 of these may have only been in playtest, but if they're not in the official release, they certainly will be soon. Pathfinder, on the other hand, took a slightly different approach, and they got a lot more granular right off the bat. The core rulebook for Pathfinder 2nd edition identifies 37 domains. We've got one other thing to consider too. There are going to be lots of different races. Pathfinder calls them ancestries, populating our world. And we've already decided that each of these, or at least groups of these, are going to be associated with their own parent deity. There are 6 ancestries in Pathfinder's core rulebook, and another 3 in the first supplements. D&D defines 9 in the Player's Handbook, and there are as many as 30 more identified on D&D Beyond website, a great place for player and dungeon master tools, by the way. So what does this mean? We're obviously not going to create one set of deities for each race, and we're obviously not going to create one deity for each domain. Do the math. That would be upwards of 1,400 deities to build out. If you're building your own world and want to tackle this, go for it. We're going to do what both Wizards of the Coast and Paizo did, and what many cultures of our own real world have done in the past. Each deity will be able to cover multiple domains, and will allow one deity or small group of deities to be responsible for multiple races or ancestries. Okay, let's start with grouping domains together by associating Pathfinder domains with what I see as potentially matching D&D domains. There are a lot of places where I felt that a Pathfinder domain fits 2 or more D&D domains. You may disagree with some of my choices, and may shuffle a list around a bit. Go for it. But this will be our starting point today. The heading in each group is the D&D domain. The list below shows the Pathfinder domains that I think fit well with it. We should be able to create a coherent story for a god or goddess for each of these groups. And there's enough repetition of the Pathfinder domains that we'll be able to do some customizing along the way. I'm going to make a decision here too, and say that the life deities will be responsible for creating the various races. So there will end up being several gods or goddesses that fit that set. The good news, though, is that we don't necessarily have to create a complete mini pantheon for each of the race and ancestry groups. It's possible, for example, that every wizard on Cartyrion, whether goblin, human, or elf, may revere the same goddess of magic. The god of death may be recognized by every race as well. Nothing says that every deity in the pantheon needs to resemble a player race either. The god of the seas could resemble a giant squid and be revered by every race. We'll see where our creativity takes us. Now for the ancestry race issue. We're going to do some consolidation here too, with some of the creators of children responsible for creating more than one race or ancestry. Here's what I came up with for Cartyrion. You might notice that not every race, especially not every D&D race, is listed here. But that's because some, specifically half-orcs and half-elves, and even dragonborn and tieflings, really weren't created separately. They're offshoots of humans or that sort of thing. We will need to have some sort of creation stories for them, but we don't need to have a separate deity in the pantheon responsible for their existence. So now it's time to just sit down and hash it all out. Identify your deities, make sure every player race has at least a creator deity, and make sure every domain is covered by somebody that every race is willing to worship. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? In this video, we covered a few basic rules for good role-playing mythology. We're making sure that you have a creation story for every race or ancestry. We make sure that your Pantheon covers all of your game system domains, or at least their equivalent. For maximum player choice, we make sure that each race has access to every domain. And we're saving ourselves some time and effort and merging deities and domain sets wherever possible. We're going to wrap it up here, and in the next video, we'll take a look at the final list of gods and goddesses that will hold sway over Cartyrion. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Leave a comment in the section down below. And until the next time, may the dice be with you.